welcome back to another impactful night. Other Impacted Education Leadership, ID3 for Isaiah Jerome III. Tonight's panelists are Bill Superfoot Wallace and John Mirrione. John Mirrione, please say hello to the people.
It's great to hear everybody tonight and be on your show again. We were on last week. We had a great time, and I think you did a beautiful job. You have wonderful guests on your show, so thank you for having me again.
So glad to have you back, sir. And the legend himself, Bill Superfoot Wallace. Please say hello to the people, sir.
Hello, how are you guys doing? Hey, just remember, I'm in warm Florida, and it's fun kicking people.
Oh, my God. Listen, we're going to have so much fun tonight, but we're going to learn so much. And for the listening audiences out there, I hope this is something you can share with your friends, your family members. And this is a classic. This is going to be a classic tonight. And with that being said, the topic for tonight is it smart to back out of a fight? I want to open up the panel real quick with that question. What did you think when you got the topic for the night? John Mirrione, what did you think, sir?
I tell you, right away, I avoid any kind of fight as much as I possibly can. If I'm given no choice, then I'll use force to stop that force. That's always been my way.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, sir. And the legend, Bill Superfoot Wallace, what did you think when you got the topic for the night, sir? Is it smart to back out of a fight?
I don't really know because I've never been in one. I've never been in a street fight. I got one fight when I was in high school senior, and that lasted 2 punches, and that was it. I don't know how I would react. But, hey, you have no idea what somebody has in his pocket. So if he's picking a fight with you, and you don't know how many friends he has around the corner, you don't know what he's got in the car, you might hit him with your best shot, and it does nothing. You don't know what drugs he's on. So for me, I just say, excuse me, I'm sorry. I can apologize with the best of it.
That was rich. That was so rich. Again, the topic tonight is it smart to back out of a fight? Violence is all around us, but rules are all around us as well because of what we see and what we have experienced. What we've seen on the headline news. Our headlines read today that there's so much aggression, and aggression has increased. And that aggressive behavior seems to get more out of control more now than ever these days. Every time you flip on the TV, you see it. Every time you turn on the TV, you see it. Every time you listen to the radio, you hear it. And so it's so common to hear about or see people fighting on social media. You see it. You experience in relatives, in homes, right? At sporting events, even on the public transportation. You catching the bus, you catching the train. John, he's in New York. They got the trains out there.
That's right.
While Bill, he's in Florida. They got boats, So people are fighting on boats. And it's really not a funny situation. Yeah. And it's Go ahead.
The problem with people is, it's like little kids. It's so funny. You watch television commercials and you say about how kids are really nice, but how they learn to be bad. No, they don't. You put two kids in a crib and you put one toy in there with them. One of the kids will grab the toy and start playing with him. You don't ever see it hand it to the other kid.
So it's
it for himself.
It's a trait that we are all born with, and when the panelists came on tonight, this is, I'm telling you, listeners, this is a superstar panel. I thought about, and this is gonna sound funny, but the person that came up in my mind is Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is the person that came up in my mind because he was culturally diverse in a way that he spread his culture, his way of life throughout the United States. So I would call that cultural diffusion. He diffused his way of life in our society and our culture, and we changed our dress code, we changed the way we carried ourselves, we changed the way we approached a fight, a confrontation, based off of what we saw Bruce Lee do. Right. And like I said, we see violence in public transportation. We see it in our schools, definitely in our schools. We see it even in the workplace. And so tonight we're going to talk about intervening. We're going to talk about how to intervene from especially a physical fight, even a verbal fight. and how sometimes some fights are so dangerous that you need to know the signs, and you need to know, like Kenny Rogers said, know when to hold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. And so with that being said, let me go first to Bill Superfoot Wallace. Sir, you know, I've been trying to get you on this podcast since Las Vegas, and I'm just so thrilled that you are here. But what you got going on currently, sir, besides being in the sunny, warm climate in Florida?
I just travel around doing seminars and things. But you know, like of all the teachings that I've done, I taught very, very few seminars in self-defense, because you know I teach people how to fight. I teach people techniques, but you know, think of all the techniques you've learned. And I'm just talking martial arts right now, not fighting or anything like that. But think of all the techniques you've learned. How many do you use when you spar? 3, 4, maybe 5. And you know, and people that get in fights, you know, they're looking for something. They're looking for, you know, a confrontation where they can bully somebody. You know, if you and I get in a fight, if I pick a fight with you, that's because primarily I think I can whip you.
I know you can.
And but that's it. You know, people get in fights because they know they can whip the guy. So you don't see two people out there and says, "Well, I'm a champion, you're a champion. Let's just fight and see who's the best."
You know what you said, because the first question I wanted to ask you, because I wanted to ask you this in Vegas, but I couldn't get to you because everyone was crowding around you. You just couldn't get to you because you're iconic. You are a martial art expert. You are a filmmaker. You're a director. You're an actor. And I want to ask you the question I'm asking now. How did you get started into martial arts? What was your stepping stone? For many people, it was bullying, being bullied.
When I was in junior high school, I was about 5'2", 5'3", something like that. And my father was a high school basketball coach. He was a high school football coach. So I naturally got on the team. As a 7th and 8th grader, I was the long snapper. You know what the long snapper is in football? I was the one stupid enough to keep my head down and snap the ball back to the punter or to the place kicker. And I just got the living out of me, because there was no 3-second rule back then. And when I became a freshman in high school, I figured, well, I'm too little to play football, too short to play basketball. So I'm walking down the hallway, and I walk by this room, and I see a bunch of guys rolling around on the floor on the mat with each other. So I walk in and say, "What are you guys doing?" And the coach is there. He says, "Well, this is the wrestling class."
Forced to just be tough, a tough guy. And so when it comes to de-escalating different types of situations, let's talk about strategies. Let's talk about what are some strategies you use, Mr. Mirrione, to de-escalate a fight.
Well, I'm gonna keep it very real. I mean, when I started martial arts, I was in Brooklyn, and my mother opened the door and she's watching a bully taking my head and slamming it to the curb, and blood coming out of the back of my head. That was the beginning of my martial arts training when I was 8. And we were a lower income family at the time, so my father took a duffel bag and he stuffed whatever he could find in that bag. And he said, he was doing, he trained with the Japanese maybe for 2 years at that time. So he was maybe intermediate level. But he started to teach me what he knew. And I had to hit that bag every day, continuously. So when that same bully approached me, I hit him in the face as fast and as hard as I could until he fell on top of me. And he was so big that I thought he was still going to hurt me, but he was surprised by my reaction, and he got up off of me and walked away. So that violence was the answer at that time. But it's not how I would teach that today. Today it's about having a conversation and telling a person to stop politely. If that doesn't work, you can walk away. If that doesn't work, you can respond verbally and give them a warning. And you'll continue to do that unless someone strikes first. And then you would have to use force to stop force. So this is verbal, but usually when people attack verbally, they have underlying issues. They usually come from parental or peer bullying. And they're simply attacking whoever they can because they have that anger inside and they don't know how to deal with it.
That's a real story, transparent, and I'm telling you right now, so many people can identify with what you just said, John Mirrione. Thank you for that, sir. And let me go back, because don't go anywhere, because I'm going to go back to you. But let me go back to Mr. Bill Wallace, Mr. Bill Superfoot Wallace, because most people know. For those listeners that don't know who this man is, he has never lost a fight. I believe he has won 23 championship fights around the world, and he's done this for years. He's been in movies with Chuck Norris. I mean, you name it. If you were a iconic martial artist, you've worked with this man. And so my question to you is, because you're a champion, John Mirrione is a champion as well. But Mr. Wallace, you're a champion. You have been in film. You have been on radio, television, you name it. What inspires you to keep doing what you're doing at 77 years old? You're still doing it. You're still out there. You're doing seminars. You're teaching children how to fight. You're teaching grown-ups how to fight. What is your passion? What is your why?
It's fun. I have an absolute blast. I get to work out with him. If you've ever been to one of my seminars, John has been to every bunch of them. I work out just as hard, if not harder, than people in the seminars. I kick probably more than anybody else does in the seminar because it's fun. I enjoy it. My wife goes with me. Sometimes I'll get her to take a self-defense part of it and go through some of the kicking techniques, go through a back fist, go through punching. But yeah, it's a ball. It's a blast. I'm 77 years old and I still enjoy it. I still do the splits. It's just fun. I enjoy it. I love the hell out of it.
Can I share something with you about Bill?
Of course, please.
Isaiah?
Yeah.
So when you mentioned Bruce Lee earlier, what a lot of people are not aware of is that Bruce became Bruce Lee because of the circle that he embraced. And in that circle was a guy like Joe Louis, who was a champion at that time. They trained together. Now, Louis learned things from Bruce, but certainly Bruce learned from Louis. Louis is a bigger guy, strong and fast. Joe Louis was very close with Bill Wallace. They trained together. There was a guy named Gene LaBelle who taught Bruce how to grapple. So there was a circle of influence in Bruce's life that made Bruce Lee who he was. And that circle is the seed of what we call MMA, mixed martial arts. So it all came from what these guys were doing. And that's what I want the world to really understand. I respect the legends because without them, we would not have the martial arts that we know today.
You had to share that. You had to share that. Go ahead.
That's right.
Oh, that.
Yeah, because when you train with Bill, he's like a kid. He's like a 70-something-year-old kid, but he's incredibly fast. Like, I'm fast, and people, admire my speed, my ability to move. Bill's got speed, he's got power, and he's got 20 years on me. So it's remarkable. So for me, it's inspirational because, the goal is when you want to carry your martial art a lifetime. And how do you learn how to do it? Well, you do it with people who are doing it for a lifetime. And it's keeping you young. And it is about having fun. And if it's not fun, I quit. I do something else, So we have a lot of fun with Bill coming up. Yeah.
A lot of it too is, like I'm 77 years old. Okay, I'm not as fast as I used to be. I'm not as strong as I used to be. But when you get older, you get sneaky. You get experience. You get intelligence.
Right.
And maybe I'm not as fast or as strong, but I'm sneaky now. So watch out. I am sneaky. I will. It's only cheating if you get caught.
How did you get the name? I know how you got the name, but how did you get the name Superfoot? Mr. Wallace, how did you get the name Superfoot?
Well, up until that time, I was Fast Billy, Hamburger Bill, whatever the case may be, because I was in point tournaments. I was really, really fast. I was quick. I fought a kid named Jimmy Coles, a really, really good fighter from Los Angeles. We fought on live CBS Sports Spectacular Television, 1976. Second round, I caught him with a really, really fast roundhouse kick to the head and knocked him down. And they kept trying to show the kick again and again and again, but they couldn't find it. They couldn't see it on the screen. So I had to, from different angles, I had to slow it way down, and they saw the kick that knocked him out. And it was a front leg, left leg roundhouse kick to the chin, and about the middle of the second round. And after that, what happened is the president of the PK, a guy named Don Klein, was at a Lakers basketball game. And he went back to the concession stand, and there was a sign above the concession stand that said "Super foot long hot dogs." So it was either hot dog or Superfoot. So they picked Superfoot.
Wow, that's insane. That's insane. Let me ask you another question. I want to open the panel. Let me open the panel with this question, because John Mirrione has to help out with this question to give it what it needs for these ingredients. And so, but Mr. Wallace, you can answer it first. It doesn't matter, but the panel's open. The question is, how do you determine whether anyone has a weapon on them or not, and what can you expect them to reach for when they do have a weapon? Or how do you know, using insight, how do you know if they're looking around for an object to use as a weapon during a fight? Our listeners need to know this, and we want to know it.
Well, number one, if they have their hands in their pockets, they probably have something. And if they're close to you, don't let them get close to you, because believe me when I tell you, the hand is quicker than the eye. So if a guy's close to you, he can punch you before you react to it. So the best thing to do is keep that distance, so he can't punch you, so he can't stick you, so there's no way getting out of the way of a bullet. But if he's got a knife, distance. If he's got a club, distance. He's got to chase me. My back is a lot more stronger than my front is. So if you stick me, it's going to be in my back. I can run with the best of them.
Now I got to go along with Bill, and that's why Bill's side position, standing sideways, is so important, to keep distance from an person who wants to. If you've ever watched me fight, I fight perfectly sideways. My front arm is down, so you got to go over it, under it, or around it. It's awful hard to go through it. So same thing with a knife, same thing with a bullet. You got to go through it, under it, or over it. And it's my protection.
Let me ask another question. And the panel is open. It is so open right now, because I told you this was going to be rich, and I knew it was going to be epic. So my next question, with the panel being open, is what was your toughest fight? What was the toughest fight you had to fight? Both of you have been fighting all over the world, but what was the toughest fight you had to fight? And give me the location as well. Was it in Canada? Was it in the United States? Was it in Germany, Russia? What was the toughest fight you had to fight?
I have one fight to share, but Bill has a lot of fights like that. He was matched up with the best around at that time, But I had one fight to share, because we had Bill had weight division, and we had no weight divisions in our competition. We were full contact and to the body with like a fiberglass shield, and no contact to the head. But these fights, often there was contact to the head, even though it wasn't allowed. And without the weight divisions, it became dangerous for a smaller fighter. So I entered the ring with a Canadian fighter who looked like Drago from Rocky. And my head didn't meet the height of his shoulders. And I knew I was in trouble. So we bowed in, I took a stance, and then I didn't see the kick that hit me in the midsection. I was knocked out of the ring and rolled into the audience, and I was blacked out. It's like a knockout to the body. I shook my head, and I got up slowly, walked back to the ring, and tried to think how I was going to even live from this fight. And I looked over at my father, who was my teacher at the time, and his face was red. So we bowed, and then the opponent came again, punched me square in the face. I thought my nose was broke. My head was down. They were checking my eyes, my nose, and they said I was okay to continue to fight. I got up, took my stance again, and this time he kicked me straight in the groin. I couldn't breathe, and they were checking to see where I got hit, and I explained it, and they picked me up, they shook my body, the lower part of my spine, to release the pain from the groin. And this time I realized it was no longer a contest. It was a street fight. And then I took a stance to survive. And I came at the fighter and I hit him as hard as I could with a leg kick. And he almost hit the ground. He got up. He was angry and disoriented. And I hit him with many punches towards the head that I could. And it didn't quite hit his head, but he was so concerned about getting hit that he had fear. And every time the judge would say to begin, I just ran up towards him and kept throwing punches at him, because I knew they couldn't kick if I stayed close. And then the time was up, the match was over. He was declared the winner, but the crowd cheered for me. So it taught me not to fear anyone, no matter how big they are.
Thank you for that, sir. That was powerful. That was powerful. Mr. Wallace, do you have anything, sir, to add to that?
Well, every guy that I fought was tough. Because I was the champion, and most of my fights were on CBS Sports Spectacular back then, back in the 70s. I didn't get a Bum of the Month club. So what happened is I fought this guy named Blinky Rodriguez, Benny Urquidez's brother-in-law, and we're fighting and we're having a good round, and he throws this left hook. Must have been from South America, but he threw this thing, and it wasn't fast, it was very strong, but I saw it coming, and I put my right hand up to defend it, and didn't make it. He hit me in the chin, and I went, holy crap. And I see all these Guamanians floating all over the place. But I still had enough, I controlled it, protected my face and backed up against the ropes and just took the onslaught for a while, and came back and won the round. But that's the hardest I've ever been hit. He hit me, and all I saw was little things floating all over the place. I don't ever want to get hit that hard again.
Right.
Ever.
The panel is still open, and listen, this is rich. This is rich. Let me ask the question while I got you both here, and I want to hear both of your perspectives. In education, we see it all the time. Every year we see gang fights. We see bullies. We see one child that maybe talked a little bit too much, and we told them, hey, don't talk that much, because you may get jumped, especially on the last day of school or on the last semester after semester exams. What would you tell the listening audience about being jumped on by multiple people, by more than one person? What do you do if you know it? This is for boys or girls. If you know multiple people are planning to jump you, what would you tell them?
Get out of there. Be gone.
Run. Yeah, what are you going to do?
Funny, this is the crazy thing about it. You see all kinds of shows that where guys take on 3 or 4 or 5 guys, like you were talking about earlier with Bruce Lee and all that stuff. But if you ever watch films, if you ever watch movies, one person attacks at a time. There might be 15 people, but only one person attacks at a time. In real life situation, there's going to be 2 of you. There's going to be 2 guys jump you at the same time. There's going to be 3 guys jump you at the same time. You can't get them all. Hey, I had trouble fighting one. What do you think it's going to be like with 2 or 3? So I don't want to have anything to do with more than one.
No, I think that's very realistic. If you go into a prison cell, if somebody goes in who's a great fighter, they're not so great anymore because the inmates come at you 3 at a time. So there's no winner there. It's just if they either survive or they don't survive.
And one other thing you might do, if there's no way you can get out of it, you get the talker, the guy that does all the talking, and you step in with a jab or a punch or a hook or something, and you take his nose off. Because number one, if you break his nose or you flatten him in the nose, first thing that happens is his eyes start to water, so he can't see. So as far as he's concerned, the fight's over. And if everybody wants you to thump in real good, you take off.
You know, it's like what Bill has always said, is that you could be lucky by hitting the vital points of a person and doing it quickly and escaping the situation. But that's if you're timed right and you hit those right points. It's really about if you're meant to get out of the situation or not.
You got to know when to walk away, and you got to know when you about to run. Now we want to discuss.
Go ahead. I was going to say is that the law says never to strike first. Survival says strike first. So it's a decision. You have to listen to your instinct. There's an inner voice, an instinct inside of us that will guide us out of a situation if we listen to it. And that happened, I mean, you could sense danger to avoid it. And you can also sense how to get out of it. Like how people survive on the battlefield in war. There's people who have survived impossible circumstances because they would go deep inside themselves to know what to do. You know, but if they're meant to die or they're meant to go, they're going to go. Yeah.
Well, the one thing you have to understand, fear is wonderful because it'll help you get away. It'll help you save yourself and protect yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So you mean to tell me
you think
fear?
You're really bad, but you aren't.
So you mean to tell me fear is healthy? You saying fear is a good thing to have?
Oh, yes, it is. Listen to me. Have you ever watched Mike Tyson fight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, you watched Mike Tyson get in his corner, walking back and forth across the ropes, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, you watch him walk back and forth in the ring, and the commentator says, look at him. He's in there walking around like a caged animal, right?
Right.
Bullshit. Pardon my expression, but he is just as scared as you or I. No, listen to me. He is just as scared as you or I, because all it takes is he has to understand, you understand, I understand, John understands. All it takes is one shot at the right place at the right time, and we're dead.
He's right. Bill's right. And I've seen the
So, yeah, every
people
time
go
I
down.
fought,
I know that. Yeah.
every time I fought, when I walked out in the ring and I stepped in the ring, I said to myself, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Wow.
Yeah.
Every time, you talk to every fighter that ever fought, he's scared. You have to be. If you're not scared, go home because you're going to lose.
Yep. I mean, you have to have enough fear to move yourself in a way that you never did, but not so much fear to paralyze yourself where you're not moving. So it's really understand how to utilize that fear, but that fear is an aspect of our power.
Listen, this is rich. This is epic. Let me ask another question, because we got people listening. They are glued to every word that you're saying. And so you both have been in martial arts for a long time. I'll just leave it at that. So, but with that being said, how necessary is for kids to learn self-defense? What's your thoughts?
I have a lot of kids that I taught. Yeah. Yeah, Bill. You go first.
Go ahead, John. No, go ahead. You teach the kid.
I taught thousands, and I've watched so many grow up. And it's my concern, and I'm sure Bill will agree, if the focus of a dojo or studio is knockout and chokeout, they call it MMA. If that's the only focus, I'm deeply concerned about the direction of martial arts. But if the thought is, how do I teach this child to be a leader, to be a kind human being, a positive contributor to society, then martial arts is a wonderful thing. And then they learn techniques to stop someone who doesn't have that as his standing. So that's important to have that balance. And that's why I believe in the harmony piece.
Mr. Wallace, what are your thoughts?
That, Bill?
Yeah.
Well, you have to understand, you got a young kid in school. He basically, at a young kid, he has no idea what he's doing. He might know how to punch, he might know how to kick, but he doesn't know why. And he doesn't know what it does to somebody else. All he knows is he's practiced these techniques, he's kicked the bags, he's kicked people, sparring and so forth. What a lot of people teach now, rather than teaching karate, rather than teaching taekwondo, they teach life skills. They teach the young person to take care of himself. They teach him techniques, they teach him movement, they teach him flexibility, strengthening exercises. So where when he does work out, where he does train, he can protect himself as well as take care of somebody else that's there. You can stop a lot of fights by just scaring the crap out of somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me. I'm gonna throw you a curveball. I'm about to throw you guys a curveball. I'm gonna see what you do to this curveball. What direction, based off of this conversation and based off what we've seen happen to martial arts over the years, okay? Because when I grew up, it was about discipline. They had a huge movement in the 70s and 80s where they were playing kung fu movies all over the screen, the TV. And they were making movies, and it got very Hollywoodish. We westernized it. But what direction is MMA fighting headed toward? And I know we talk about, MMA, UFC, PFL tournaments, but what direction? The panel's open. What's your thoughts?
Well, I have very deep concerns about it. I mean, I have a friend of mine who's best friend of mine, never lost a UFC match. His name is Marcos Martinez. Wonderful guy. But when he started, they didn't have gloves, and it was more real. They didn't have weight divisions, and they started having a lot more rules, which I understand. But Marcos didn't draw blood from his opponent. It was all by submission. and he took pride in not going out there violently. He wasn't a violent fighter. It's the violent aspect of it, when people are going out there for blood, and they're standing up on the ring, and they're chanting, and there's a pool of blood on the ground. It's problematic. Or if you have a public figure who's a martial arts fighter, and he talks in ways that I wouldn't want my children to hear it. That's my concern where it's going. But the athleticism is great. Just like with Bill, with what he had done, his athleticism was spectacular. But, I have a dear friend named Leo Fong who passed away. He was closest to Bruce Lee. And they were best friends, and they would have these deep talks. But he mentioned that, Bruce had a side to him that was very philosophical. And he really believed in the openness in thinking and learning and growing as a human being. And that's supposed to be the essence of what martial arts is supposed to be. But when the essence is rage in the cage, I have a big question mark on that.
Mr. Wallace, what's your thoughts? Mr. Bill Superfoot Wallace.
Well, MMA is purely confrontational. It's competition. You have to understand physiologically what happens in an MMA match. In kickboxing, you hit me and I go down. The referee stops between us, and I get an 8 count so I can kind of regain my senses somewhat, right? Now, in an MMA match, you hit me, I go down. So, number one, you hit me, then I hit the floor. That's 2. Then you jump on top of me, hit me 4 more times before the referee grabs you. That's not really 4, that's 8, because my head bounces off the floor 4 times also. So that's really 10 shots that you've hit me, and I haven't done anything yet. Now, pretty soon you're going to find out that look at all the fighters out there that get knocked out. MMA guys now get knocked out with 1 shot. They come back, everybody says, oh, that was a lucky shot. He comes back a couple months later and gets knocked out again with 1 shot. When you get hit hard in the head and you get a concussion, your brain swells. And when your brain swells, it pushes down all the acid, the fluid, not the acid, but the synovial fluid and the lubricating fluid that's in the brain. Now it's surrounding the brain in the cranium area, right? Cranial area. So what happens now, you get finger touched in the chin, you go down. And it's, you got it's competition. It's like two gladiators out there fighting, except this time the loser doesn't die.
Wow.
Maybe.
That's exactly what it is. That's exactly.
There's no longevity. Yeah. Fighters, show me one fighter. Terrible beating. Show me one fighter out there that doesn't have cauliflower ears.
No, you're right. And then the life of these fighters. The news. It was like 2 or 3 fighters recently. They just died young. One of them was a young lady. She died at 18 years old, and I'm looking like, wow.
Yep. Your brain can only take so much punishment, and you got to realize also. I wrestled. I've been wrestling since 1957. I still wrestle a little bit, and if you look at my ears, there's no cauliflower. They're not mangled because we were forced. You had to in high school and college. You had to wear ear guards, ear protection. You had to. What I don't understand is why MMA guys don't wear it just for practice. Because if you watch the cauliflowers, you got to get those drained about every 6 months. And the needle's about 6 inches long. And they got to drain, and that hurts like hell.
But what happens if you don't get it drained?
It just swells up, gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Sometimes it pops out. It bursts.
Listen, tonight's topic is it smart to back out of a fight? You are listening to heavyweights. You're listening to world champions tell you the ins and outs of a fight. Yeah, it looks cool, but if you're not getting paid to fight, you may want to walk away. Let me ask this last question. Oh my goodness, we out of time. All right, let me ask this last question before we go. Why is it important to not fight if you don't have to?
So you can go home and kiss your wife hello.
Yeah.
It's like police officers. What's the most important aspect? To go home after work.
Yeah, you get to live your life and enjoy your life.
When I want to, like I said, I've never been in a street fight. I don't want to get in one. I can apologize, like I said earlier. I can apologize real easy, and I'm full of apologizes. The only thing is, you don't know if I really mean it or I don't. But it still gets me out of the fight.
Now, Miss Wallace, you will speak your mind, because I remember in Las Vegas, I saw you out there. You will speak your mind.
There's no questions about that. That guy's so real.
But same question, Mr. John Mirrione, same question.
Well, I tell you, I had a confrontation on the train where I was able to resolve a conflict. It was a guy that had gotten out of jail for manslaughter, and he made it known on the train that he got out of jail. It was myself and an old lady sitting across from me. And at that time, I had my head shaved. It was the summertime, and he yelled at me on the train, and he asked me, he says, "Hey, boy, I'm talking to you." And he came over, and he started yelling. He wanted money. And I just sat there still. I didn't move, looking straight at this old lady in front of me. And she looked like she was going to urinate because she was so scared. And I just stared at her and ignored him. And then he yelled, "Are you a skinhead?" I said, "No." And then he sat next to me, bumped into me, and he said, "I need money from you." I said, "I don't have any money." And then he said to me, "Well, what do you do for a living?" I said, "I teach karate." And he says, "Oh, that's why you've been calm the whole time. Let me sing you a song." So he started to sing to me on the train. And the old lady was confused. The song as the train stopped. And I said, "You're a pretty good singer." And I gave him $2 that I had in my pocket. And I got off the train. And I was very happy about that, the way that ended up. Because if I had to fight him, I would have gotten hurt because he was much bigger. He would have gotten hurt because he would have expected me to do what I would have done to him. The police would have locked us up. We'd go to jail. The inmates would beat both of us up. And then our lawyers would be fighting. And everyone loses. But that day I felt like I really won.
Listen, you knocked it out the ballpark. Our time is up, but before we go, what are the takeaways for the night? Who wants to go first?
Let Bill go first.
I'm really glad to go first. If you're going to be a martial artist, enjoy it. It's a lot of things you can do in your life that is good only when you're young and in good shape. But martial arts, you can do absolutely forever. I'm 77, like I said. Started when I was 57 years old because wrestling is a martial art. And I have a blast doing it. It's got me all over the world. I've never really had a job. But I enjoy it. I enjoy training, enjoy teaching, enjoy the sparring part of it.
Well, Mr. Wallace, how old were you when you started fighting again?
Well, when I wrestled, I started as a freshman in high school. I think I was 14.
Right, but how old were you when you started fighting?
21.
Okay, 21.
I learned the service. I was in the service.
Well, now what service were you in? Please say Army. Please say Army.
I was 18. Excuse me, I was 18. I was 18 because we played judo.
No, I'm saying what military service were you in?
Air Force.
Oh wow. Anyway, no, I'm joking. Thank you for your service, sir.
That's right. We gave you guys good rides.
Yes.
Mr.
Bill and I had that in common. I was in the Air Force too. I'm a veteran. I served during the Gulf War, so him and I had that in common. But yeah, I trained with my dad for 26 years. I did a style called Shirin-Drew, and so any competitions that I won was through the Shirin-Drew Shinzen. It was like a world organization, and it was a great experience for me. But was I a world champion? I had 1 year where I won almost the round robin. I won first in forms, first in weapons, and second in fighting. But I never had a first place world victory in fighting. Just so you know, Bill has the what? How many did you have, Bill?
Oh, a couple.
Yeah, only a couple. So, and then I trained with Leo Fong for a long time, and with Bill for quite some time. And my friend Marcos, and then there was a woman named Tao that I did yoga with. She passed away, and she was 101. So when I wake up in the morning, I do all full splits on the ground. I can do them cold, and I do my back bend. And part of that was learning that from Bill when he had the videotapes out on the market. But the yoga really took it to a different place. So I've been blessed to have this in my life. Feel good. Also to stop anyone who doesn't want me to feel good.
Love it, love it, love it. Listen, tonight was another, wow, impactful night of the Impact to Education Leadership. Our guests tonight were John Mirrione and the legend himself, Bill Superfoot Wallace. Good night. Impact of Educational Leadership Podcast. Facebook,